Okay, just gonna set this up real quick. Broadcasting directly on the channel, or the group rather, so this should work out pretty well in terms of audio. So if you can't hear me, please let me know if you can. I would appreciate anything. And no, this is not an April Fool's joke of any sort, though I dropped my April Fool's joke on Twitter already, and we'll see what happens, because the last couple of years I dropped April Fool's jokes on Twitter. People thought it was such a good idea that they wanted me to go ahead and do it, so that's not cool. So yeah, for those of you watching the replay, this is, not new, but I felt, since, all sorts of mayhem's gonna happen tomorrow, just, to put something today, since it's gonna be a little bit more lighthearted and crazy today in terms of the April Fool stuff going on. But it's really important to know, because I think it's all too often we fall victim to it. So we'll just wait another couple seconds and get everybody on here, and then we'll get started. But I got to tell you, there's some really cool data coming out. I'm trying to pull them up right now on my screen so I can show it to you guys. I have all 50 states, what their averages are, as well as their standard deviation, which is insane. I have the general pay by setting, which is getting crazy as well. And then also by position type. And then finally, by, what would I have? Oh yeah, and then also some resident and tech stuff. All right, let's just get started. So what's up, guys? No, again, not an April Fool's joke. This is for real. This is real talk. As much as I wanted to do an April Fool's joke, this isn't worth joking about. This is real stuff. Historically speaking, PT's getting paid very little. What's going on, Fernando? PT's getting paid very little, quote unquote, or less than we feel like we should. This has been a historical problem for two sides. Number one, we suck at negotiating business. Number two, we suck at holding true to our value. And so, if you talk to some of those veteran PTs, especially in private practice, the ones that are still our pioneers, like if they were any kind of normal person, they would have retired 30 years ago, but they're still in practice because they care that much. And I had the privilege of meeting a lot of them at PPS, this last conference. And they were telling stories about how in the 80s and the 90s, even early 2000s, what would happen is PT companies would go to the negotiation tables with third-party payers and start to lowball themselves on the contracts. And so, they would just say insurance company A, all right? So they go to insurance company A, they're going to renegotiate the contract, and instead of going, hey, there's inflation, inflated business costs, and we're providing more value because, it's the 90s, and now most of our PTs are actually masters of physical therapy, and, we bring a better product. And so because of those reasons, we will be saving you money. What do you think about paying us the difference? That never happened. Very rarely, actually. What ended up typically happening is private practitioners would go, well, no, don't drop the contract. Just pay us less. Don't be mad at us. And this very, subservient mindset of, oh, we can't do this. We gotta lowball ourselves so that they'll say yes. And that's just a great example of how historically we have created this culture within ourselves to get us paid little. And then we flip it on the other side. So that's from like an employer to, enterprise thing. But what about the employer to employee relationship? Well, typically what would happen is back in, again, the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, we were dealing with a healthcare human resource crisis. It's probably most famous with the nursing industry. Right? We had a lot of foreign trained nurses that came in through those time periods because we just didn't have enough. And we're about to experience that same problem in physical therapy in the next couple of years. We're actually experiencing it right now. We just don't feel it yet. But by 2020, there'll be way more PT positions open than there are PTs to actually fill them. So what ended up happening was we were so desperate to hire people that we started throwing crazy amounts of benefit packages at people. Primarily it had to do with loyalty because they didn't want to go through the cost of turnover. Because cost of turnover, well, first off, in the United States, turnover happens at about 15% annually. So if you have 100 people, 15 people will eventually leave every single year. And if it hasn't happened yet, right, it's a regression to the mean. It will happen, and typically it's a mass exodus. Typically it's a cultural issue within the company, and that's a different talk. Now, what happened was, after subsequent years, you had these PTs that were promised all these loyalty merit-based benefits where they get a lot of, raises, right? Just almost guaranteed 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%, matching 401ks, a pension plan, all this stuff. Those are very expensive compensation packages that really add up over time. And so what ends up happening is, all of a sudden, 10 years later, the same workforce costs 2, 3, 4 times as much as when they were entry level. But as the new entry level folks came in, you couldn't give them that same compensation package anymore. It just wasn't, economically feasible. And this is where this whole eating our young thing started occurring within healthcare. And it happened a lot in PT because, again, our culture kind of perpetuated that. Right, and if you just jumped on, we talked about how, in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, there were private practice companies and even just publicly traded corporations that would downgrade themselves in front of third-party payers so they wouldn't, quote, lose a contract. And they were never in threat of losing contracts. They just wanted to make sure it was theirs. But in doing so, they devalued themselves and didn't hold true to their own value, period. And that's something that we have issues with in physical therapy as PTs and PTAs, is we just don't hold true to that. And I'm telling you, don't repeat that history. The reason PTs, or just the physical therapy industry at large, is paid so very little is because we do not establish the value for ourselves. If we don't define our own value, somebody else will define it for us, and we're probably not going to like it. And that's true of any market, of any industry, of any profession. And only in Crazy Town is that okay. And it's not okay anymore, right? It's not okay anymore because we, especially if you're, a millennial, or if you're a career changer. I met a lot of career changers over the last couple of conferences. It's like their 5th career. They were a teacher, they went to real estate, they were a contractor, they did all these different things, and they finally decided, look, I'm going to take out $150,000 and become a doctor of physical therapy because that is what I feel brings purpose to my life and brings meaning to others. That is commitment. And for them and everyone else, it's no longer okay for us to go out there and go, yeah, people keep telling us that I can't negotiate anything, and in fact, it's going to take me 10 years to even build a career, and I'm just going to be in debt forever, and blah, blah, blah. Like, that kind of stuff, just not okay. Right? It's not okay, and honestly, it's not real. And I want to show you some examples. So let me pull up the numbers here. Here we go. All right. Get ready, folks. And I see a couple of comments floating through and a couple of icons. So, my phone's been acting up a little funny. If you can hear me, just give me a couple of, happy faces or something, because it's, April Fool's. But we're talking real stuff. All right, guys. Here we go. Now, thank you, Rich. Okay, guys. So some of you are probably familiar with this. Some of you probably aren't. This is directly from the PT Job Market Pulse. All right. This is a free email, free database, open source, transparent stuff that we put together usually about once every 2 to 3 months. So about once a quarter, 3 times every 2 quarters, something like that. And this is real data. This is live data since June of last year. All right. This is fresher than anything you'll see on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, on Indeed, whatever. Like on Monster, this is the freshest data you'll see. And we trend it for experience, and we trend it for, we trend it for setting, all the different things. In fact, we even have professors in here. We have residents here. It's pretty cool stuff. But the number I really want you to check out is this. Check this out. I'll highlight them. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Because most of us, that's not coming through. I know why it's not coming through, because I'm a dork and, put everything in black and white. There you are. Okay. So, check this out, guys. What you should notice immediately, other than the fact that, yeah, management gets paid a little bit nicer, is that, of course, home health pays the best, no matter what. And they're not getting paid, $20,000, right? Yeah, it's a little bit more, but what's crazy is outpatient and outpatient. It's almost not even worth it, right? It's almost not even worth it to be in management right now for outpatient, because you get paid so little. And this is crazy trended data, because this is the newest of all the averages, and this is bumping up the trends from earlier. This is the highest paying outpatient quarter we've ever seen. But this data actually includes, I believe everything. Yep. No. This is just this quarter. So this is the highest paying quarter compared to, let me show you the average. Oops, that's not it. Bam. This is the average. So the average overall in our industry is about 72 for, more new gradish facing folks. But man, look at this. 81. That's a $10,000 raise in just the last quarter. Why? Like I said, we're facing a time, and go black and white again just because I think it's stylish. All right, we're facing this time where there's so much need for physical therapists and for PTAs that companies are gobbling up talent so fast, just beyond speed. And a lot of them are operating at losses because they need to have those physical therapists in their human resource pools to be able to go to, again, insurance company A and say, hey, look, we have the manpower to take care of your 5 million beneficiaries today. And that just doesn't happen, right? Like, you can't do that unless you have those people. Let me look at this real quick. Rich, fact of life. Yes. Exactly. Read Rich's comment. Fact of life, roll anything. It has to be fulfilling for you. Raj, the Pulse, just saw PT commenting on another girl, 55, if they're lucky as a new grad PT. Yeah, Raj, I mean, that's insane, right? I mean, that's median PT pay, that's median US pay. Let's just let that sink in, right? $50,000, last I checked was probably 3 to 5 months ago, is the median pay in the United States. It is not okay on any level whatsoever for doctors of anything to get paid median US pay. It's just not, right? At least based on our economy. Now, based on our economy, supposedly the better you're trained, the more value you bring. But really, we also know the more value you bring is actually the more value you bring. Your training means only so much. You have to be able to deliver the goods, and we do. There's so much research out there that says that we do. Our problem is we are terrible at communicating that value on a consumer level. We talk too much science and not enough stories. Again, another talk. Let's go back to this whole why PTs are paid little and what we can do about it. And the fact that I just showed you, right, on the Pulse, this last quarter is the highest paying quarter to the point where, the average, again, younger professional facing, and I mean younger professional as in if you've graduated recently, if you're a career changer, and this is your second year out, that kind of thing. This is the highest paying outpatient quarter, Q1 2017, that we've ever seen, $81,000 a year. New grads and younger facing. And I mean, let's be honest, right? People that fill out the Pulse, that drop their data in for, open source, you're probably a younger facing professional. You've probably only been out for a couple of years. Now, you might be in your fourth career, but you're still probably pretty fresh. But that's crazy, right? There's so many people I keep hearing from, oh yeah, a private practitioner came to my program and they said, you have no reason to think you have any space whatsoever or position that you can possibly negotiate. Wrong. All right. Like, I breached the 6-figure ceiling in 3 years post-grad. Anyone can do it. And I know of new grads doing it in the first year. I've helped them. I've mentored them. Like, it's just a fact. It's possible. It's possible because there's so much demand for PT. That's how it is. And I'll tell these 3 stories, okay? Like, there is a new grad that's about 4 years out that I know of that's going to be pushing about $130K this year and paying off all debts, and hopefully will open a clinic in the next year or two, and probably debt and loan free. There's another new grad that's been out for, I think, 8 months, projected to make about, I think, $140K, give or take. And then there's a new grad that was an attaché friend to somebody that I was mentoring. And you probably heard this before. They wanted acute care. They're passionate about it. Acute care is my world. I love acute care. In fact, I was watching Doctor Strange last night because I'm late to the party. And where he hugs the family, and I was like, man, I miss that. Like, I really miss that. Like, that's what makes it worth it to me. And I love acute care, and this new grad PT goes out to a for-profit hospital, gets offered, mid-high 30s counters, and lands 46 an hour and 52 on the weekends. No questions asked. None of this, like, good day, sir. Good day, madam. You lose. Blah. Like, none of that. That doesn't happen ever. And if it does, you don't want to work there. You don't want to work everywhere. You don't want every single opportunity to say yes because you don't want to say yes to them. You want to make sure it's a good fit. Otherwise, you'll burn out faster than you can think. And moreover, that goes back to why PTs are paid so little, right? 80s, 90s, early 2000s, too many PT companies were so willing to bow down to insurance payers and downgrade their own pay rates. That's why our reimbursement rates are terrible, amongst other things. So I'm telling you to make a stand and to know your value. And I'll ask you this right now. If you know your value, I want you to put a bunch of hearts right there so people can see it. All right? And I mean, whether it's your intrinsic value, your numerical value, or how much, if you actually know how many dollars you bring in to an outpatient clinic. Let me just ask you that. If you know it, drop them hearts. And Kevin, 6 figures in 3 years, it's a mixture. Love those hearts. You guys see that? You guys see that? Kevin, 6 figures in 3 years, it's a mixture of outpatient and travel. And so there's some home health and some SNF mixed in there too. But I gotta tell you this, I know plenty of private practitioners that are trying to pass the torch and they're creating value-based systems where new grads are making those 6 figures because they're getting pumped up to director in the first year. There are a lot of private practitioners that want to pass the torch. Let me show you this. All right. Now, if you don't know, let me show you some math that may or may not blow your mind. So let's do this. Let me flip the camera around again. See if I can do this without like crashing, because that's going to be just funny. Boom, boom. Hey, okay. Let's make this big. You guys can see this, right? Let me make it really big. All right. So say you're working 8 hours a day, right? Oop, that's not good. This is weird. I'm looking through a camera to a camera. All right. So you're working 8 hours a day. And let's say say 6.5 of those hours are productive. All right. So, and let's say you're doing 30-minute treatments. So let's just make that times 2. And that's how many patients you're seeing right there per day. All right. Oop, per day. Per day. I had my coffee. I'm like all on it right now. So what does that mean? Let me do this. I'm gonna kind of do it sideways. Okay, guys, it's gonna be kind of like a little bit weird, just so I can. I'll bring it up in a second. All right. So what does that mean? Because I want to figure out what you're actually worth. Right. I want to figure out what you're worth on the dollar amount that you're bringing in. Okay. So here we go. So if you're doing 8-hour days, you're doing 6.5 hours productivity. You're seeing 13 patients a day. Okay. And so what does that mean? Say if you're doing 5 days a week and you're doing say 50 weeks a year. Right. So you just multiply all that together. You get the product of bam, 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 boom. Oops. Product. And this is a number, remember this, just like another number, which is 2080, remember this. All right, let me bring this up again. All right, so here we go. Why do you want to remember this? You want to remember this number here because this is the average amount of patient encounters a PT has every given year. And this matters because this has everything to do with how much money you're bringing into a clinic, into a SNF, into an acute care hospital, into a rehab hospital, you name it. You want to remember this because this is the amount of hours the average person works a year, 2,080. And so to put that into perspective, every dollar an hour you negotiate is an extra $2,000 in your pocket pre-tax. So if you want an extra $2,000, just ask. And I guarantee you most of them will say yes without a question. But let's go back to here. Okay, so 3250. Now let's talk about something called the RPP, right? The revenue per patient. Sometimes they call it ARPP, average revenue per patient, or they put it like the NPP, the net NRPP, net revenue per patient. That's after like insurance adjustments. But let's just call it RPP, right? Most places can safely make $80 per patient. Some places less, like there's certain areas like Minnesota, New York, Colorado is a little bit tough sometimes, but on average across the nation, you can get this pretty well. And exactly, Raj, I'm detracting myself. Raj said it's all about the hustle. Yeah, you put in hours, but if you love it, you're making money, it's all good. So let's take a look at this. So how much money are you bringing in? Right, that's the big question. How many? What's your dollars per year of gross revenue to the clinic? So you multiply that, and you multiply by that, and boom! Oh my goodness gracious! Did you know? Did you know? Rich is telling me an acute care joke. Oh my gosh. I love you, Rich. All right, so, but did you know this? Did you know that on average, the average physical therapist can bring in about $250,000+ a year to their clinic? So why in the world would you settle for $55,000 a year? Why? You cannot. Right? You just can't. Because let's just talk about this, right? Let's use the second number here, right? The whole 208. These, again, remember these numbers. 3250 and 2080. All right, you go over here. All right? And let's just say a private practitioner wants to pay you 40% of that. That's your salary. Right? What's the hourly equivalent? Divided by 2080. Boom. $50 an hour. Now, yes, I know these numbers very well because I'm probably best known for this in this world, for how that works. Ooh, there we go. But here's the thing, guys. All right. I bet you most of you have never seen that graph before, or those numbers before. And most of you probably have not heard, unless it's from me or any one of the other student advocates out there, that you bring in that much financial value alone. Let's not talk about the amount of cost savings that you're bringing to, say, a health system, right? Imagine, like, I've caught in several strokes before. I've caught several strokes, several PEs, and untold amount of DVTs in my acute care times. How much money did I save that health system by preventing something terrible from happening? How much money did I save a health system when I was piloting emergency department PT and I saw somebody and differentialed them out for BPPV, or saw somebody with acute lower back pain and told them, okay, calm down, and why don't you go over there to that outpatient clinic, all right, and gave them some stuff to do. A lot of money. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about what gross revenue are we bringing in. And that's on the lower spectrum, guys. I mean, yeah, some places they don't bring as much. They may bring like $150,000, $180,000, per full-time equivalent. They call it FTE, right? And here's the thing, guys, is now that you cannot allow yourself to be bullied, because that's what it is. All right. Historically, we PTs have been so willing to bully our own selves in front of others and amongst each other that we've so devalued ourselves and repeated history repetitively that we have told ourselves we're worthless. That's really what it is. Behaviorally, we've told ourselves we're worthless. And I, for one, refuse that. And I have encouraged everyone I ever talked to refuse that. And as a corporate manager, when I was a director of rehab, the first PT new grad I hired, $40 an hour out of the gate, no questions asked. And when I posed that to my director of rehab, she was like, okay, you think he's worth it? Let's go. No, she didn't go like, oh, no, we have to pay him $55,000 a year. No, there was no questions asked. We bring so much value, but we don't know it. And that's the problem. And unless you stick with that, no one else will know it too. Unless you hold true to your value, no one else will know it too. Unless you share it from a consumer perspective, stories of how they can benefit from your expertise, they won't know it too, because they could care less what your dynamic gait index is. They could care less what your FABQ is. They could care less what your oswestry becomes. What they care about is the story that they get to share, right? Or the story that they hear, that their parent, after a terrible hang gliding accident, is able to walk again. Right? That a grandma who is unable to pick up their child can now play with them on the ground. That somebody who fell and busted their hip did not fall susceptible to that terrible statistic of morbidity and mortality after a hip fracture after a certain age. So, let me scroll up and make sure I don't miss any of these comments. Alyssa, I was in the same place. I got lowballed so bad that PT assistants were making more money than me in my region. That's part of why I'm on this, huge passion quest. And Christina, you're right. It's so difficult. That first number is so important. At the PT Masterminds get together at CSM, earlier this year, I talked about something called the first win. It's just a side conversation. The first win is so important. And this is just in life, not just in PT and career, but your first win defines future wins, because that becomes the relative stave of how you jump and get higher, right? Because for me, I got paid $30 out of the gate, an hour out of the gate. In 3 years, I breached over 6 figures, but that was a difficult climb. But once I made it, every single place I applied to for PRN gigs and stuff like that while we were establishing UpDoc Media, they never bat an eye when I said, hey, look, here's my last number. I would like to get paid something near that, because I believe I bring the value. I have an MBA. I used to be a corporate director. I know exactly what you're going through. In fact, I can be on your side when you have these tough issues to deal with, and I can advocate for the business side in conjunction with clinical excellence, so you don't have to, so that your staff don't feel that you're the bad guy. right? That's a big deal. And so certain, hiring managers will go, you know what, that's awesome, you're in. Others will be, you know what, I just can't hire you because, they didn't say it out loud, but because my entire staff is lowballed, I can't justify that. So let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. There's a lot of good comments. I won't address all of them, but guys, if you don't want to be paid so little, you have to stand true to your value. You have to understand these economic factors. If you don't, we'll be lost forever, right? And we can't be so naive to think, oh, I'm pure and this is just clinical care. Absolutely, we should be, but those to me are synchronous dimensions, the clinical and the business side, right? The patient care and the administration side, they flow together. They're several ecospheres as part of one ecosystem. You can't see things in isolated silos. You have to see them as part of a whole, right? And it doesn't mean you have to be excellent in all of it. Like I share this joke all the time. You don't want me treating your elbow, wrist, and hand because I suck at it for whatever reason. Like I can get myself in trouble well enough, and your simple carpal tunnel things, just simple like repetitive motion stuff. Yeah, I can deal with that. But stuff that's complex, like hand splints and what else, you don't want me to do that for you. I suck at that. I'll tell you who to go to, right? But acute care, not bad. Higher level sports performance, I'm pretty good. Neck and shoulder, I do okay. But that's the thing. We have to be humble enough to promote our colleagues and elevate them and do that mutually, right? That's how we get out in the communities and become professionals of the communities, because we're so willing to elevate and understand that this is a mutual growth situation, because we own less than 10% of the musculoskeletal market, all right? We own less than 10% of anyone and everyone that could benefit from a physical therapist. 10% of them see us eventually. And eventually, not just direct access, just eventually, right? Even after several surgeries, eventually. That's not good enough. That's not good enough for us, and that's definitely not good enough for healthcare at large or the people we serve. So we need to do a better job at that. And that also goes right back to that roots of knowing your value, sticking true to it, and sharing it in a meaningful way to the person across from you. Now, let's see. Got a couple questions coming in, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to get through this as fast as I can. I'm trying not to miss anything either. All right, some awesome comments, guys. I really hope you guys will scroll through the comments. I will scroll through the comments later. You know that, for those of you that jumped on these things with me. Some good questions. Taylor and Drew, how do you sell yourself as a new grad? What happens if you get lowballed and you accept the position? This is very common, guys. If experience isn't the only thing that's valuable, because I'll tell you this, time itself isn't valuable. Not an April Fool's joke. Time itself is not valuable. Time is a vehicle for value. If I sit here for an hour and don't say a word to you and don't say anything that's useful to you, this is not a valuable conversation. But I'm hoping you guys are getting some value out of this, because I'm putting out stuff that hopefully that is new and useful, or reminds you to light up that fire and passion again and get out there. That's useful, right? That's valuable. So how do you sell yourself? Well, I pretty much am sure that as a new grad, you have a lot more exposure and experience to diverse practice patterns. So if you go to an outpatient place that's super ortho, classical ortho stuff, so a lot of total joint, a lot of work comp, but they maybe don't have a pelvic floor program, or they maybe don't have a vestibular program, or maybe they don't have a TMJ program, maybe they don't have a youth sports program, maybe they don't have a lot of opportunity to capture that you could bring to the table. Boom. The other thing I tell everybody, kill a pain. Somebody doesn't want to stay late for work comp patients? Well, have a couple hours differential for that. Somebody doesn't want to work on the weekends? Have a couple dollars an hour differential for that, right? Value is when you bring more or help them lose less. But here's the problem. In healthcare, and especially in PT, we're so fixated on cost savings. We're so fixated on losing less. Let's just lose less, please. And it's this fear factor. Here's the thing, guys. You don't win wars, you don't win battles, you don't win sports games by being defensive. Defensive holds the line. Offense wins those games, right? But you do need the defense to support that. And I know some coaches will they'll disagree with me, but at least on an economic level, nobody makes more money by losing it. Now, you can lose a lot of money first if you're not responsible for it, but unless you have the cash flow, right? You're never going to buy into a company with poor cash flow. You're not going to invest in a company that's not having good cash flow. Same with general businesses in healthcare. So then you ask the question, what happens if you got lowballed already? Usually at the probation mark and at the 1-year appraisal periods, those are good times to renegotiate what's going on, right? It's a good time to go, hey boss, I took a careful look around. I looked at my satisfaction scores and my patient outcomes. It looks like I'm doing pretty good. In fact, it looks like I'm a little bit more advanced for where entry level is. Maybe we have an open conversation, nothing committal, just an open conversation about what my future at this company may look like. Just start there, right? And just have an actual open, transparent conversation. And you'll know if you want to move on, because one of the biggest mistakes PTs make is they don't move on. Losing battery on my phone. We don't move on when we should. I'll tell you this, the first time I quit, I got a 14% raise, just like that. Just like that. And it's a common thing. Lateral transfers tend to come with those things because, again, we're at a very, very, very starved out period of human resources in physical therapy. So people are just desperate to get you in. All right, what else we got? So I hope that helped. I don't know how long I've been on here. How long have I been on here for? Let me check that. 30 minutes. Pretty good. That's about what I planned for. So let me just make sure I don't lose anything here. So I hope that helped, guys. Like, it kills me when I hear about new grads and even just, there's a lot of seasoned clinicians actually I'm talking with because they're switching settings because what they want to do and what they're being forced to do is different. And so we have a lot of acute rehab and acute care and some outpatient folks that are drifting quickly into home health because they don't want to be part of a world that has become corrupted. And it's just not the right fit for them right now to be part of that combative solution. Because sometimes you do have to go on the offense. Like in legislation, you have to go on the offense. You can't just kill bills. You have to make bills that are, in favor of your license. Rich, can I make a graphic for these figures? Which figures? There's like a whole bunch of figures. The answer is probably yes, either way. You can PM me. And actually, this goes for everybody. If you have questions, please private message me. I'll try to get to all those message requests if we're not friends already. Feel free to friend me. I can't tell you how many conversations I have over Facebook. Instagram is starting up, but a lot of times usually through Twitter and Snapchat, email and text. You have questions, you have problems, let me know. Right? And I know a lot of owners will be watching this, and if you're an owner right now, I can tell you, I'm very encouraged to know this, that owners have given me feedback about the PT job market pulse, that they're using it to create more competitive compensation packages for their employees, right? Because that's the biggest problem is trying to find and keep good talent. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal. Again, 15% annual turnover in the United States, and the replacement cost, 30%. So if you're at that 1-year mark and you're going, man, I got lowballed bad. Well, for the most part, 2 numbers matter. Number 1, you can't get paid more than somebody else that should be paid more in that company. And number 2, as long as you don't go over that 30% replacement cost over the next, survivable years of you being part of that organization, your boss will probably say yes to that counter. It's just good business. So again, I hope this helps you guys. 30 minutes was going to be my mark. Any questions, please let me know. Drop them right now. I know there's a little bit of a lag on Facebook Live. I'll try to stick around for a couple more minutes. Otherwise, you can feel free to drop them in the comments. I will go back to this because I always do. I'll check the comments. And I have a couple links below just in case you're interested. If you're interested in the PT job market pulse and you don't know about it, it's an open source data set and it's live trended for PT job market stuff. So PTAs, PTs, residents of all sorts, all the settings, acute care, pediatrics, home health, neuro, SNF, outpatient, of course, trended by state, by zip code, by experience, by full-time, part-time equivalents, you name it, it's there. And so many people have told me that they've used that and very openly gone to their bosses or their prospective employer and go, hey, my understanding is the average rate here is this. And I like to know your thoughts on matching it. Just like that. And the person across the table goes, okay, we'll match it. And that's it. And usually that's like a $2 to $4, extra an hour raise right out of the gate. The worst mistake you can do at the negotiations table is not ask. It's just business. Nobody's going to fault you for it. And quite honestly, the ones that do, you do not want to work there because those are the ones that don't value you. Those are the ones that are more likely to abuse you. Same thing with insurance contracts. And we talked about this so many times all throughout last year at all the business conferences for rehab that I went to. Every single leader in our industry was saying, was encouraging and exhorting our compadres in private practice, do not say yes to bad paying contracts. Just don't do it. It kills our industry. It kills our profession, and it kills our colleagues. And I'm saying on the employee employment side, I'm saying the same thing to you. I'm getting all excited. I'm tripping all over my words, right? Do not say yes to bum employment contracts. Just don't do it. There are so many more opportunities out there than the ones that want to mistreat you. Just don't do it. I've been there. I've seen it. I've tried to fight the good fight from within, and I found that I'm more effective fighting the good fight this way. David, the link is in this broadcast description. I kind of dotted it way down there because, I'm not trying to, and Mike, same thing. I'm not trying to sell it because there's no money made from the PT Job Market Pulse. It's just way down at the bottom. If there's a link, it should be in there. And it's on UpDoc Media. It's just PT Job Market Pulse. If you Google PT Job Market Pulse and UpDoc or UpDoc Media, I'm sure it'll show up. And you just go down to the very bottom of that post. You can skip everything on that post. It's just a bunch of me saying the exact same thing I'm saying right now. And one of the posts links at the bottom is the database entry form, which a lot of people are using. The other link is to sign up for the newsletter, and that's when I send out the periodicals. I trend out everything like we talked about today, and I give you guys the more or less raw data. It's actually expanded raw data, so it's the raw data and then all the process data to create the trending. So PT Job Market Pulse. And then there's another link down there. I've been getting a lot of requests from those in the 3 to 5 year, development gap in their profession. And, there's a lot of people telling me that, they feel stagnant, that they feel like they hit the glass ceiling, both in pay as well as in job opportunity. And a lot of that's what Pathfinders is for. And so you can look into that. It's just kind of a light plug. If you're looking for or interested in career mentorship, that includes, not just the career path, but also some, financial, financial wisdom behind it, like personal finance stuff. There's a lot of collaboration going on. And I'm very, very excited about that particular program coming out. But for the large, by and large, most of you guys will get much more, interest from the PT Job Market Pulse because you'll just get the data for free. That's what it's all about. Let's wrap it up. David, thank you. Jay, say good starting point for a new grad. Generally speaking, not thinking about anything specific. Well, Jay, if you look at the PT Job Market Pulse, and I'll just put it up here right now. Bum, bum, bum. Give me a second. Start here. This is your average pay. This is your average pay for every single setting. And I'll tell you this too. The standard deviation is massive. It's something like 12 to 15,000 typically per state. Like some states are more narrow, like 5 to 8,000. That tells you if the average is like $70,000 for that setting, that means you can pay it 85 if you ask nicely and demonstrate your value in a professional way. Super important. So, honestly, let me answer it this way. What is a good number to start with? A has to be reasonable, right? Reasonable for the job market, reasonable for the employer, and reasonable for the general amount of value you're bringing in the market. And number 2, it needs to make sense for you. So if you're going out there going, I'm a new grad and I know I'm worth 100K. Well, then you have to find a situation that matches that. That's how you land that job. And I'll guarantee you right here, home health and small growing private practitioners will welcome 100K if you're willing to grind it out and work it. It's not going to be 40 hours a week. It's going to be 50, 60 hours a week, but you'll make the 100K. If you want a more, balanced lifestyle and you want good benefits and you want a good retirement plan and you want to be able to practice, say, neuro or do some wound care, that's what acute care is for. You might start a little lower, but the other side of the benefits package will pay for it. And that's the other thing is you have to consider the entire compensation package. I know I get a lot of flack from certain peoples for talking so much about the monies, but here's the thing, guys. We have a lot of money in debt. If we're not getting that cash flow, we can't pay it off. But I also am a huge proponent of the entire compensation package because some of that stuff will pay down later. Like if you're like me and you got a really good retirement package early on, you might be able to use that to float a clinic later on in life without taking out a loan. That's a big deal. And we'll talk about some of that stuff in Pathfinders too. All right, I'm all talked out, guys. Anything else? Thank you for all the icons of love and for jumping on a funky day like April Fool's, and for taking it seriously. It can just get kind of crazy on a day like this. So, questions, guys, please let me know. PM me, email me, ben@updocmedia, text me, 470-BEN-FUNG, that's 470-BEN-FUNG, Snapchat me, Instagram me, Twitter me, Dr. Ben Fung, DrBenFung. Anything that you can find, you can reach out that way. If you're going to go on my Facebook page, go that way. I'm a little slow to respond there, but I do my very best to respond within the hour and definitely within the day, unless I'm on travels, which will probably come up pretty soon. So again, hope that helps, guys. Really, truly, I'm begging you. I'm encouraging you. I'm almost demanding of you. If you've heard this, at the very least, consider it. Consider your value. Don't let anyone else define it for you. And definitely don't devalue yourself. You bring so much to the table. There's so much the general public and the general healthcare and consumer wants from us in physical therapy. If we were only to share these victory stories, these shared victory stories together, the value proposition would be insane. And a lot of employers are understanding this. A lot of new grad PTs are understanding it. We have a record number of new grad PTs opening up clinic right out of school for the very reason that the market is ready for us. And our training is, you know what, pretty damn good. So that's a whole nother talk too. All right, guys. This is April 1. Have a rock star month. Have a rock star rest of the week. And again, anything you need, anything else you want to hear about, please let us know. We're all about putting out this kind of content to help you out. And honestly, to help fellow PTs win. The more we win, the more we win together. You got to chip away that 10% market share and make it 20 next year and 30 next year and 50 the year after that. Because that's how we win and that's how the people we serve win. Because there's far too many people that are down that terrible cycle of declining physical health and pain and opioids and all sorts of other things, right? Surgeries, and getting put in this cycle of refer within the healthcare systems. They really need access to us, guys. And this is a multi-pronged approach. It's not just one channel or another. It all has to work together. So I encourage you, to put that in mind and take that to heart and let that express itself with passion. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thanks for joining me.